Hello, Cindy. How are you doing?
I'm great. It's good to see you, Jen.
I say this I probably every single time, but I love nothing more than days when there is a book launching. And I love that your book is launching, and even more importantly, that we are launching it on International Women's Day.
Yes.
We did it, which is super exciting. How,
It
like,
seems very fated to be this way now.
Absolutely. So I want to start with just asking you, how are you feeling, like in this moment right now on launch day?
Uh, it's a weird thing because our world is so virtual. So in building up to launch day, I was like trying to be excited, but it looks like every other day in my house for the last 2 years. But today, because I've been in contact with so many people and my social media is just blowing up with well wishes, that it really feels like something is happening today. So thank you to everybody who's doing that. So
Yeah, it's so, it's so interesting because obviously like we're coming up on the 2-year anniversary of COVID.
yeah.
And so we have had to pivot quite a bit to be, virtual, right? In terms of book launches and being creative of like, what does a book launch look like right now? So it's interesting that you're like, it's kind of like any other day, but at the same time, you have people kind of pouring in all sorts of love for you and in your work, which is phenomenal and fantastic. So let's just start by sharing a little bit, like, if you want to just kind of say what the name of the book is, the title, the subtitle, and just a little bit, about the book. And then I'm going to ask you a whole bunch of questions.
Sure. So my book is From Changing Diapers to Changing the World. And here's the part that tells you what it's about. It's why moms make great advocates and how to get started. Sometimes I have trouble naming things, but I wanted to be very clear with this. What are you going to find in this book? This is a book that is meant to inspire moms, to warmly invite them into activism, to be engaged in advocacy, to help moms over some of the barriers that might be preventing them from speaking out about policies that are affecting our families. I'm a mom. I'm a mom of two teens, 16 and 18 years old, but I've been doing advocacy since I've been carrying them around in baby carriers and on my hips and things like that. So what you're going to get in this book is the full experience of being a mom advocate.
I love that. So let's take a step back and go high level. So
Okay.
what was the purpose behind this book? Like, what is your big picture vision that readers are going to take away from reading this?
So for those that are moms, I wanted to create a book that would help them to feel powerful and to feel like they could do something. This is, that old saying, write the book that you wish that you could read. And this is the book that I wish that I had about 15 years ago. And I was feeling like I have, these babies. I'm feeling really isolated in the house, not unlike how people felt, how not just moms, but everybody felt in 2020. And I was like listening to bad news coming in on the radio, and I was feeling like I couldn't do anything about it. So my goal here with this book is to empower moms to go from thinking, I can't change the world because I'm just a mom, to I can change the world because I'm a mom, because I have these special skills, and because I'm me and I have this perspective. That's what makes me good at this work.
Yeah. And there's something like I don't think anyone is going to argue with the fact that moms are the greatest multitaskers. Like it's just like there is that adage, right? Like if you want something done, ask a mom or
Yeah. Or ask a busy mom.
yeah,
She
right.
will fit it in and she will do it in the most efficient way possible.
Absolutely. We have no choice. And so how long ago did you start writing this? And I know that we already kind of said it at the top of this, that it is International Women's Day. We were very intentional about launching it today. So how long, like, let's go back in time. How long ago was it that you started this?
Yeah, I think we're like right around a 10-year anniversary on this, because I do remember it was about in 2012. So that would have been, 10 years ago. I remember being on a Shot at Life trip. Shot at Life is a campaign of the United Nations Foundation. And I was with this group of people that was advocating on global vaccines. And they selected a handful of us to go to Uganda to meet mothers who were using the vaccines that for measles, polio, rotavirus, routine childhood immunizations that the US had donated to Uganda. And I remember being in the back of this UN VW bus, and we were like bumping up and down on these roads. It was not a comfortable bus, but we were so thrilled to be there. I remember being hunched down in the back with two of my friends that you will read about in this book, and saying, I think I have an idea. I think I'm going to write a book. And they were like, yeah, you should totally do it, which is what women should do on International Women's Day and every day. So it was about 10 years, and I can't remember the date, but just right around a decade.
Wow. And I wanted to ask that question. I wasn't entirely sure what time frame you were going to provide, but I just wanted to share that, because I think a lot of times people just say, oh, wow, like they just wrote that book overnight, or it just like came to market overnight. And, in this case, it's 10 years of time that you were focused on it, 10 years of additional experience to kind of really round out all of the wise information that you've included in the book. So, what
I just want to stop there just a second and say, like, I really did have to live through these things. I think at the time I was like thinking, oh, this is to capture this moment in time. But I'm really glad that I lived through the middle school or through the high school years, and that we took a pause about the time that I met you in 2020. That I was really thinking that I wanted to publish the book in 2019 or 2020, but when the world forced us to take a step back, it really added a lot to the book, because like I was telling you, I was a global health advocate. I've been working on malnutrition and vaccines, and COVID blasted away all of my really rosy statistics. And I had to add that part and take a look at myself and see, what did I want to say about protesting, and what did I want to say about oppression and racial injustice. So sometimes it behooves us to take a little bit longer to make the book that you really want to write.
That is incredibly wise advice. I think that a lot of times, especially when you're writing or you're working on it for so long and so hard, once you get to that place where you're like, okay, it's ready to have somebody else do the rest of it, that's the time where people kind of rush, and then they don't slow down to take into the consideration those variables that are kind of operating in real time. So I love that you did that and used it to your advantage. And here we are, 10 years later. Like, how cool is it that it's like a 10-year anniversary of idea to now? And it's not uncommon that it takes that long for people to get to this place. So it's incredible that you are here. And again, it's International Women's Day, which is super exciting from just a promotional standpoint. So what is I know we talked a little bit about, like the purpose behind this, and a little bit of like who the book is for. And we talked a little bit about like busy moms and things like that, but can we just really like make it real clear for anyone who's watching this to know, like, is this book for me? Can we go like deep into that?
Yeah. I would say if you are a mom in any circumstance, if you're working mom, stay at home mom, if you've got little ones, if you've got big ones, this book is for you. And the reason that I'm confident in saying that is that this book is also it's not a memoir just of me. It's filled with stories of mom activists that inspire me, that are from diverse backgrounds. They don't necessarily look like me or have lives like I do, or, I've tried to talk to many of my colleagues from different income levels. And, some of them are sneaking in advocacy actions, making a phone call between running from, I'm thinking of one friend who goes from high school and she calls Congress while she's on her commute home. And so the book has a lot of step-by-step instructions on how to do advocacy. And it has a lot of tips and tricks and hints of ways to think about ways to incorporate it into your life, so that you don't have to think of it as, oh, this is one more thing I'm going to do on top of everything else. It's more like, oh, this is how I can do this so I can feel better about my life and more empowered. I have also had some people who are not moms women and men who have said, you so clearly explain how to do these advocacy actions that I got a lot out of it. So I guess broadening it out from moms, what I'm saying is people who are stressed for time, which is pretty much everybody that I know. People who would like to move from feeling helpless about how policy is affecting their lives to feeling empowered, and people who like to read stories about funny things that kids do, and because that's also in there.
Yeah. And so in the examples that you share, obviously you as a person have things that you are politically active around and that you're advocating for from a policy level, from, where you're geographically located and things like that. But from a way that the book is actually structured, are you going into anything that is policy specific, or is it really this, what I'm teaching you here will apply to anything that you might be advocating for?
It's really the latter. And when I talk about policy, it usually comes from the stories of different moms. Like, for instance, I support a lot of policy that addresses climate change, but one person can only be in so many places at one time. So I am grateful to my climate activist friends who are working on that kind of thing. So that kind of policy comes out through what they're doing. There are people who work on U.S. poverty. I happen to be a global health more specialist. It's inviting everybody to build the skills to address what they are passionate about. Several excerpts from Moms Demand Action Against Gun Violence. I am a volunteer with them. I would say that I am like a medium level volunteer with them and a high level global health activist. Yeah. But what I love about these organizations, and I really encourage anybody who's interested in this work to get involved with a reputable, nonpartisan organization. What I really love about them is the support that you get, that you don't have to feel like you're going alone, which is how I felt 15 years ago. It doesn't have to be that way. I'll just give a little example of something that happened yesterday. I live in Missouri, and Moms Demand Action had their Missouri lobby days in our state capitol. Of course, it was virtual because of COVID. And, we're asked to do things like share selfies and put things on. There are some differences from talking about nutrition to talking about gun violence. There are bots that are set up just to harass people who are talking about gun violence. They look for the hashtags, and I was feeling pretty down because nobody likes to get those kinds of things in their notifications. But this morning when I woke up, the founder of Moms Demand Action was lifting up my book, and I said something about it in our Facebook group to the Missouri moms, and like, this is what moms excel at, is supporting and rushing in and be like, I'm so sorry that happened. Those internet trolls say more about themselves than they say about the people that they're trashing. And moms are so good at that.
So good. There's so much. And I wanted to ask that question so that way, if someone did come into it thinking, well, this is going to be leaning this political direction or this political direction, but the reality is that everyone's advocating for different things. And this is very much a playbook for how to just better advocate for the thing that you are passionate about.
Somebody asked me, what would you do if somebody that you didn't agree with took your book and took your guidelines and started advocating the opposite position? And I just said, that would be an improvement, because what this book is talking about is civil discussion, how to advocate and respect each other, these are things that moms teach their kids all the time. Be respectful, be safe, share, make sure everybody gets a turn and things like that. So if some of the rhetoric from people that oppose me got toned down and got more respectful, I would be so happy. So it can be for them too.
Yeah. And it should be, right? Like, we want, because to your point, as long as there's a civil discourse around it, I think that's That's a beautiful way of looking at it, because you could obviously have a very different vantage point.
Yeah, and I'm not always right. I will say that. And my kids are teens now, so they are um, coming up against startling examples where I am not right,
Mhm.
and they will not hesitate to tell me about it.
That's the joy of having a teenager, of which I also have. So yes, I understand that. What I want to just ask you, because I'm not even sure I know the answer to this. How did you even get in this space of advocacy to begin with? Like, what brought you here?
Yeah. So my journey kind of started from a point of feeling very alone and helpless and vulnerable. So when I was raising in the very early stages of having a newborn and a 2-year-old, uh, my church, I don't know how every church does it, but I was very blessed to have a church that provided childcare
Mhm.
to um, anybody who wanted to attend adult programming. And at the time, I had quit my job to raise the kids. My husband had quit his job to start a business. I don't necessarily recommend that, the double spouse leaving the workforce plan. It worked out for us, but it did mean that I was kind of frugally looking for ways uh, to get a break. So I went to a lot of adult programming in my church at that time because I knew the kids would be taken care of. And a friend noticed that I seemed to really like the programs that talked about hunger and poverty. It was something that I was getting interested in. I was learning more about, and yet I was getting more depressed about it. I think a lot of people can relate to that now with so many issues bubbling up to the surface between 2020 and today. So it was really the invitation of a friend to say, hey, would you write letters with us? This doesn't take much time. You can do this at night when your kids have woken up and for a diaper change and they're blissfully sleeping and now you're wide awake. And I loved that. And they invited Bread for the World invited me to come to a conference, and uh, taking those chances, and it's described in much more detail in the book of how that actually happened. But I would say getting support, individuals in my life helping me to remove barriers
Mhm.
to getting to DC, or even just find chunks of time to do things. That is how I got involved.
That's so good. I feel like we all have so much potential from an advocacy standpoint, and we just don't even realize it. So I love that your book will help people kind of see and recognize their own potential. And then hopefully they read it and they're like, wow, I can be a great advocate for whatever this thing is I'm passionate about. And let me pass this book along to someone else in my life, or have them read it so they can also be a better advocate, because that's really what I think we're missing. There's just
Yeah,
not enough voices at the table and kind of lobbying or doing whatever level of advocacy exists, because we all have the power to make a change.
which leads to another point that I've designed this book to have discussion points throughout it. Like you'll find at the end of the chapter, it'll say it's your turn, and it'll ask several questions. So it's meant to uh, sit with yourself and answer those questions, or sit with friends and see what bubbles up. Um, and there's also sections about trying to identify what is the cause that you would like to take on and do something about. I should have said earlier, you were talking about the different issues that are covered in the book.
Mhm.
I felt like I could go on and on and on. When we first started talking, I had said this is going to be a 200-page book, something like really
Mhm.
easy. And it is like a whopping 300 pages or something like that. But what I did is I intentionally made it so that people are invited to skip around in it, because that's how a busy mom's brain works.
Mhm.
Um, with the exception of Game of Thrones, when I had little ones, I didn't like to read things like straight through. Um, and I don't recommend skipping around in Game of Thrones. That would be really confusing. But you can skip around in my book.
Yeah. And I love that you're saying that, because while yes, it's a significant size book, but it's written in a very accessible way. Like, you are very clear about the accessibility for people, for anyone to kind of just pick it up and get what they're looking for, which is the kind of the choose your own adventure feel of how the book is structured. So I think it was a very wise decision to take that path, because it just makes it
And you will not die in any of the choices in my book. I always died like right away in Choose Your Own Adventure. But to your point, like going through and reading, like some people might be like, I'm in the mood for a story. So those are kind of set off in a certain kind of typeset and things like that. But if you're reading along and you're like, I cannot wait to do this, then flip to the third section, which is called Advocacy Made Easy. And it just has these, each kind of advocacy action, whether it's calling Congress or writing a letter to the editor, or maybe handwriting a letter. They each have their own thing that's like just, 3 or 4 pages that'll tell you just how to do it. And it's like, if you can't wait, skip to the back, take an action. You'll feel really good, and then read more later.
Oh, that's so good. So good. I love that. And I love, to me, like, I think about my advocacy work over the years, of which there has been a lot in the last like 15 years, I would say, actually going on 16. And I think about, like, my son's going to be 14, and I have dragged him to the state capitol before. He has been at conferences where I'm like trying to get somebody to do something. And what I love about this is that you can kind of take the person who maybe they're volunteering for something, maybe it might be an official volunteer role, maybe it's unofficial, but it's like taking that passion that somebody already has for a particular organization and giving them the tools and the resources to take it one step further. And I feel like that's so empowering for both adults, moms in this case, but also their children, right? Like, just think about like what a better world we will all live in, regardless of what we're advocating for, but just to be able to advocate civilly with good guidance.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because if you want to advocate with your children, you can see stories about how I've done it, how some of my colleagues have done it, which, by the way, again, looks very different. Like there's lots of advice from from a mom who took her kids to protests since they were in strollers all the way to teens. Protests are not my forte. I'll admit, like even before COVID, I wasn't like super excited to be in crowds. I'm more of a sit down one-on-one. I'd rather sit with a senator, face to face. But everybody has their different things, and you can see examples of people doing with their kids all around. I will tell you that my kids did become advocates. Skip to the end of the story. They are advocates. One of them has been involved in Students Demand Action, and both of them are involved in the Sunrise Movement. The younger one is a local leader, and the older one, they work on like national phone banking. And so it's made me very happy, especially since I told you I don't have time to do everything. So they are becoming climate specialists and can alert me when there's things to do.
Yeah, so good. I love that. And I've been training my son for a number of years. And so, like, right now we're advocating for something in particular. And so we're going around putting, signs up, just like in the grocery store and the bulletin boards in the library and things like that. Like, all of that matters, right? And so it's just picking up where you feel comfortable and bringing your kid along, because there's no reason why we shouldn't be showing our children what this looks like. Because think about, especially with your kids, right? So they've been around this their entire lives, like how incredible and empowering they're going to be, even more so as adults, let alone how empowered they are as 16 and 18-year-olds. It's so
it made me really happy to hear my 16-year-old say that something happened in their diversity class that I can't recall right at this moment. There's a state bill moving through that would be very detrimental to what they care about. And another classmate came to her and said, "You know how to do this, right? Can we do an action on it?" And she's like, "Yeah, sure, let's go." And I'd be remiss if I didn't plug the fact that my older child, the 18-year-old, they are writing a book now that's sort of the sequel to this book we're going to write together about youth advocacy. Hopefully it will not take 10 years. I've learned a lot, and we can kind of streamline this process, because we don't want the youth to actually be middle-aged by the time that book comes out.
Yes, yeah, and like you said, you've learned a lot. You have lots of resources and support. I champion the work that book too. And Yara has been here this whole time, chiming in the comments.
No.
So
I can't see you, Yara, but thank you.
I didn't tell you how to find the comments intentionally, so that way you can focus on your points. But we have a couple of PYP authors who are here, and they're kind of celebrating with you. And you have it looks like Alex and Paula and
Aw.
Karen and Eco Happiness Project. So you've got a lot of love and support in here. And Michelle is saying, we should all be able to get behind, curing hunger and poverty, and Rose. And so you have a lot of, and Yara saying, Mom, I'm working on the book right now in 5th period class, I promise.
Thanks, sweetie.
To me, this proves the point, right? So like you have one of your children who is so invested in you, in your work, that they are, supposed to be in 5th period class right now. And they're here to support you. I think that speaks volumes when your child is actually paying attention to what you're doing. And I feel like we should all aspire to have that in our lives from whether it's a mom or, an aunt or whomever it might be, to just be that inspiration for a young person. Like that's just so awesome to me.
Thanks for telling me who's out there, because that's really fun. And you were incredibly wise in not showing me where to find those. And I do want to take a second to thank you for all of your help and support in this, because I think that I was just a really confused debut author. And now I'm a less confused debut author, but I have all the help that I need to take this book into the world, and hopefully be taking it on the road for speaking engagements and things like that, which is just a dream here. I always want to reach out to individual moms, but I'm also looking to talk to groups like PTA and Moms Demand, like you said, like the people who are advocating that want to go to the next level and need that bit of encouragement. Because without those kinds of mentors, especially at Results, they were always pushing me to do the next scary thing. And advocacy shouldn't be scary, but sometimes it just is. Taking your own opinion and putting it into the world is not something that a lot of us do naturally. But I hope that this book can be like the warm, funny, supportive friend that's just there for you whenever you need them. Because I can't always be sitting at your bedside, and you wouldn't want that. That's creepy. Creepy.
Yeah, but this book is a perfect addition to the bedside, so I love that. Is there anything that I didn't ask you that you would like to share? And can we talk about how people can kind of get in touch with you? Because yes, you have this book and it's an amazing resource, but there are many other ways in which you can support people. So if you want to kind of share a little bit about that.
If I were just to leave people with something, because I think still sometimes there are people that are like, that's nice for her, but advocacy sounds very scary. And when I first heard it, I didn't really know what the word meant. So I'm just going to tell everybody here that really what we're talking about is just expressing yourself to inspire action from somebody else that has the power to help. And sometimes that could be the governor or the president or your senator, or sometimes it's, the head of your PTA, or sometimes it's, somebody else that's in your life that you know quite well. So I don't want people to get spun up about this. This is just something that we can all do together to move our issues down the field. But where to get the book? Is that what you were getting at?
And to your website.
Yep. So my website is up there. It's changyit.com. That's just my maiden name, CHANGYIT.com. And you can find, right now, actually, you can't get autographed copies because I'm out at my house. Isn't that exciting that I sold out of my pre-sale orders? But if you would like an autographed copy later, just watch that space. And certainly you can follow the links to get it on Amazon or your favorite independent bookstore. You can just go order it there. What you'll also find on my website is examples of different keynotes or workshops that I do around this kind of work. That if you would like somebody to come in and talk about how to write letters to the editor, and it doesn't have to be in person. In fact, right now, it's still probably better if we're not in person. I'm happy to do these kinds of things over Zoom. And you can contact me through the website.
That's so good. And like you said, your book is available wherever you can buy books. If, support your local independent bookstore. That's something that's important to us as a company. So, share, go in, just say, hey, I need to order this book and I need to order 10 copies for people I know. Like, just buy it and give it out, I think would be a great thing. And Michelle Hoberman is saying you helped make it less scary for me. And I thank you so much for that. So,
Oh,
like, how great is this? You already have people you've been impacting over the last decade, and now you have this book that will do so much good in this world. And I am so grateful to have you as part of the PYP author family, because
thank you.
it's just beautiful and magical, and I love it. And I've been waiting for so long for your book to come out. So here we are. It's exciting.
You've been waiting, man. I've been waiting a while. And speaking of support, the other Publish Your Purpose authors, we get to have office hours together, and man, hearing them move through the journey was like really helped me keep on track and keep my hopes and spirits up. So thank you to the whole PYP family.
Yeah, that's the goal of the office hours, is for our people to come together as a family and to just share and just inspire and motivate and all those things. So now you're going to be on the office hours next, as my book is out. Now everyone can look to you for the courage and the encouragement and wisdom. Like, how great is that? Thank you so much, Cindy. I so appreciate you. And with that being said, go out, get the book, check out Cindy's work, contact her, all of the things. Cindy's available on our website too. So however you want to get in touch with her, please go ahead and do so. And Cindy, I will see you very soon.
Thank you. Thank you to everybody who came in.